Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. All right, I'm asking for a big favor. Please sign this pledge to never drive distracted by hitting the dislike button on this video. I want to see this video become the most disliked in all of YouTube history. Right? If this were YouTube Rewind and it was about signing a pledge to never drive distracted, really, I don't see any reason why I shouldn't get 8 billion dislikes. Everybody should sign this pledge. I noticed that every time I've gotten into a car accident, and I haven't gotten one that was my fault for 9 years now, but every time I've gotten into a car accident, whether it be my fault or not, one thing that I universally notice is that the accident takes 1 second to less than 1 second to happen, but the fallout often lasts a long time. You got to get your car repaired. You might have to replace it. You might be late for whatever you were going to. You have to explain yourself. And that's only if you don't get hurt, right? If you get hurt, all of those effects get multiplied thousands of times, right? You might have to learn to drive a different car. I hate having to replace my car. There's always something I didn't expect. There's a huge learning curve, right? I don't even like to pick up a rental car. I would rather, depending on the distance, a lot of times, part of the reason I choose to drive somewhere instead of flying there is that I can have a familiar car when I get there, believe it or not. Right? So, for example, I live in Phoenix, Arizona. Las Vegas, Albuquerque, those are driving places for me, in large part because I'd rather have a familiar car over there, right? If I were going to Wallace, Idaho, that might be a different story, right? That's where the calculus starts to flip over, I would say. But that's me. The other thing I've noticed is that if you just wait until you get there, you could focus a lot more on the text, right? Too many times, we talk about how texting affects our driving, but it goes the other way too. If you try to text and drive, driving can affect your texting, right? If you're trying to text your boss, a significant other, I would say driving could impair those texts too. You could say the wrong thing. You could have the wrong emotions on your mind. Driving's a pretty stressful activity as it is, right? Now, what was I going to say? I know there was something else I wanted to say. Some people think that they only text when they're stopped at a red light. I see this a lot. That I sometimes get into trouble myself with this because I get very angry about it. I wave dislikes at people who do that, and it's caused a lot of tension. I gotta be careful. It's bad enough when I'm driving, but sometimes when I'm walking and I see people text and drive, I wave dislikes at them. These people get really defensive. They only do it when they're stopped. Here's the thing. It's a very slippery slope. Texting when you're stopped often leads to texting when you're stuck in traffic, which then leads to texting when you're only going, I'm only going 15, 20 miles an hour because it's a school zone anyway. It leads to progressively worse and worse. I've never seen anybody who only texts at stoplights, right? Just if you need to look for directions, pull in somewhere and do that, right? And another thing that really concerns me, and this one gives me a lot of grave concern, I was at a church function one time where there were a lot of parents who had young kids, right? Like 5, 10 years old. One thing I noticed when I got out to the parking lot to leave is that people drove so much more carefully because they had kids. And then I remembered the demographics. So many people, 70% of people who are under 18 today will never have kids. Something like that. I can't remember the exact number. And it gives me grave concern that these people are one day going to go behind the wheel of a car. And, I used to be guilty of that myself. I had my last car accident in 2016. My big guilty pleasure was I used to daydream a lot while I'm driving. And the accident I had, I was daydreaming, and traffic had slowed down. I couldn't react fast enough. Gotta remember what my lifestyle looked like back then, right? I was competing in a computer Olympiad, and I hadn't dated in some time at that point, and it was just me, right? I didn't get along with my parents. I didn't get along with my younger brother. In fact, my brother and I argued one time. We were at my grandpa's funeral, and I almost missed the funeral because I was writing a computer game, and I told my brother and our parents, "Hey, you could just go without me, Grandpa's gone anyway. Who cares?" And my brother was so upset at me. And so I really had nothing to lose, and that's what allowed me to drive so recklessly. And then I started dating a girl many, many years my junior, and she would be in the car, and I could taste that the concept of driving was a very different concept when she was in the car. And it scares me that more and more people are living in situations where they have nothing to lose, right? Not only in terms of their love life, but you got people who are thinking about whether or not the government's going to cancel their student loan debt. You got people who don't own anything and are presumably happy because of that. And now you're going to give them a 5-ton weapon that can go 100 miles an hour. That gives me a lot of concern. I hate to say it this way, but I really feel that way, right? I don't know. The concept of somebody who's crying over whether or not the government's going to cancel their student debt while piloting a 5-ton weapon. That combination just scares the crap out of me. Leave a comment if you agree with that. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.